Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas, and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research boards. Parkland shooting survivor Donovan Meteyer dies at 26. Multiple outlets report that Donovan Meteyer, who survived the 2018 Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland, Florida, has died at age 26. Reports say he died by suicide after years of mental health struggles. Delaware High Court reinstates Elon Musk's Tesla pay package. Delaware's Supreme Court has reinstated Elon Musk's 2018 Tesla compensation package, valued at roughly $55 billion. The ruling reverses a lower court decision that had previously thrown the package out, putting the landmark executive pay fight back in Musk's favor. Point. Major San Francisco power outage hits about 130,000 customers. A large power outage in San Francisco left roughly 130,000 homes and businesses without electricity, disrupting traffic lights and transit. Reports also said autonomous ride services paused operations after vehicles became stuck at dark intersections during the outage. Coast Guard pursuing another tanker linked to Venezuela. Sanctions enforcement U.S. officials say the Coast Guard is pursuing a sanctioned oil tanker near Venezuela in what is described as another enforcement action tied to sanctions and illicit oil trafficking. The case has drawn international attention as Washington signals continued maritime pressure on sanctioned shipping networks. U.S. targets tanker Bella 1 amid stepped-up Venezuela oil actions. Reporting from multiple outlets identifies the tanker Bella 1 as a focus of U.S. action near Venezuela, with claims the ship has a sanctions history and has been tied to evasion networks. Coverage says this is part of a broader U.S. push targeting sanctioned oil flows in the region. France confirms plan for new nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. France says it will build a new, larger aircraft carrier to replace the Charles de Gaulle, with a target of being operational by 2038. French officials describe it as a major defense industrial project as Europe faces growing security pressures. Chile elects José Antonio Cast. President in runoff Chile has elected conservative José Antonio Cast president, with major outlets reporting he won the runoff with about 58% of the vote. Analysts say the result marks a sharp political shift and will test how far his agenda can move through a divided Congress. NORAD marks 70 years of tracking Santa. NORAD says it is continuing its long-running holiday tradition of tracking Santa's route, marking the 70th year of the program. The annual effort includes public updates through online dashboards and call centers. IDF chief warns Israel can strike on near and distant fronts. Israel's military chief said the IDF is prepared to strike threats wherever required, referencing both near and distant fronts as leadership shifts in the planning directorate. The remarks are being widely interpreted as a signal of readiness for broader regional contingencies. DOJ Office of Legal Counsel issues new opinion on means-tested public benefit definition. The Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel released a memo revisiting how federal law defines federal means-tested public benefit, a change that could affect eligibility rules in certain programs. Immigration policy groups and legal observers say the opinion reverses a late 1990s interpretation. CISA nominee Sean Planky confirmation remains stalled. Reporting says Sean Planky's nomination to lead CISA remains stuck in the Senate, leaving the agency without a Senate-confirmed director heading into 2026. Lawmakers and industry voices warn the delay comes during sustained pressure from major cyber threats. NORAD intercept details released for Palm Beach TFR violation. NORAD says fighters were scrambled to intercept an aircraft that violated temporary flight restrictions over Palm Beach, Florida, with officials reminding pilots to monitor emergency frequencies and comply with intercept procedures. The incident is part of a larger pattern of repeated TFR violations in the area. FBI document shows early warning about Jeffrey Epstein in 1996. Newly released records show Maria Farmer reported allegations involving Jeffrey Epstein to the FBI in 1996, including claims tied to sexual exploitation and illegal imagery. The disclosure is renewing scrutiny over why earlier action did not stop later abuse. Milwaukee judge convicted of obstruction in federal immigration-related case A. Milwaukee judge was found guilty of felony obstruction in a case alleging interference with federal immigration enforcement. The verdict follows a high-profile trial and has sparked debate over courtroom conduct and federal-state tensions on immigration enforcement. Tow truck driver acquitted after towing ICE vehicle during enforcement action. A Los Angeles jury acquitted tow truck driver Bobby Nunez on federal charges tied to towing a government vehicle during an immigration arrest operation. Defense attorneys argued he moved the vehicle briefly and it was quickly recovered, while prosecutors said it interfered with enforcement. Point. Australia. Wayne Swan criticizes booing of PM Albanese at vigil. Former Deputy Prime Minister Wayne Swan said he was not happy about Prime Minister Anthony Albanese being booed at a vigil, amid heightened tensions after a recent terror attack. The incident has intensified national debate over security, social cohesion, and public anger spilling into public events. Actor James Ransone dies at 46. Actor James Ransone, known for roles in HBO's The Wire and the film It Chapter 2, has died at age 46, with the medical examiner listing suicide. Colleagues and fans are mourning his death as tributes spread across the entertainment community. Congress escalates pressure on DOJ over Epstein file redactions and omissions. New reporting says lawmakers are increasing pressure on the Justice Department over the handling of Epstein-related disclosures, including disputes over redactions and what was not released. DOJ leadership has pushed back publicly, saying the department is complying with legal requirements. San Francisco's $20,000 trash can prototype program resurfaces in renewed criticism. San Francisco's past pilot program for custom trash can prototypes, some reported near $20,000 per unit, continues to be cited as an example of high-cost city procurement. City reporting has noted prototypes were part of a design and testing effort before any mass production decisions. Report: Home Depot location in Los Angeles installs high-volume noise devices. A report says a Home Depot location in Los Angeles installed loud sound devices in its parking lot, drawing backlash from activists who argue it targets day laborers. The coverage frames the move as an escalation in efforts to discourage gathering and solicitation on private property. Minnesota fraud oversight debate intensifies amid broader investigations. Minnesota's ongoing fraud cases, some linked to state-administered programs, continue to drive political and oversight battles, with officials citing weaknesses in controls and enforcement. Local reporting notes multiple investigations over several years, and national figures are now amplifying the issue. DHS says it has located more than 129,000 unaccompanied children who were previously listed as missing, describing the effort as a joint push with HHS. Officials say the figures reflect case tracking outcomes. Black Vault publishes military psychological operations training document. After FOIA effort, the Black Vault reports it obtained and published a U.S. military training document tied to Joint Psychological Operations Task Force headquarters functions, following FOIA work. The site says the release provides a clearer look at how PSYOP headquarters training is structured. Point. Department of Justice Welfare. Following the new OLC memo, advocates and political commentators are debating how the revised interpretation could affect access to certain federal benefit programs. The dispute centers on which programs count as means tested and how agencies apply the definition in practice. Reports revisit Poland-Ukraine historical dispute after alleged Volhynia gift story. A report claims Poland's president gave Ukraine's leader a book about the Volhynia massacre, a sensitive World War II-era issue in Polish-Ukrainian relations. Point. Ohio. Shoplifting suspect tries to shoot officer at point-blank range. Weapon malfunctions. Police body cam footage from Ohio shows a suspect accused of shoplifting pulling a gun in a store security room and attempting to fire at an officer at close range. Reports say the gun malfunctioned, and the suspect was subdued and charged with attempted murder and related offenses. Tina Peters' legal battle continues amid pardon-related headlines. Coverage says former Colorado election clerk Tina Peters remains tied up in state and federal legal processes, including appeals and disputes over release. Reports also note the legal limits of federal action when underlying convictions are in state court. U.S. Coast Guard pursuit near Venezuela draws international attention. Fresh reporting says U.S. efforts to board or intercept sanctioned tankers near Venezuela are escalating. U.S. officials argue the actions are focused on enforcing sanctions and stopping illicit oil trade routes. Providence mayoral race. Candidate Michael English faces renewed scrutiny over past conviction. Local reporting and court records show Providence mayoral candidate Michael English has a prior child molestation conviction from the late 1990s and later probation violation litigation. The issue is now central in the public debate over his candidacy and fitness for office. CISA leadership gap raises concern heading into 2026. Reporting says the continuing delay in confirming a CISA director is leaving long-term planning and coordination in limbo. Cybersecurity officials warn the leadership gap comes as major intrusions, and telecom vulnerabilities remain a national focus. Epstein document releases renew calls for accountability over past failures. New Epstein-related disclosures are fueling renewed demands for answers about who knew what and when inside federal law enforcement. Survivors and advocates argue earlier intervention could have prevented additional harm and are pressing for fuller transparency. France frames new carrier as strategic and industrial investment. French officials say the new carrier will strengthen maritime power and support domestic industry, with large-scale supply chain participation. Reporting also notes France plans to increase defense spending as geopolitical tensions rise. Chile markets react after election results. After Jose Antonio Cast's victory, coverage notes investor interest in how quickly security and economic reforms could move, given congressional constraints. Analysts expect early signals from the transition team to shape market expectations. San Francisco outage highlights infrastructure dependency for autonomous vehicles. Reporting from the San Francisco blackout shows autonomous systems can stall when core infrastructure fails, especially traffic controls and communications. City officials and companies say emergency procedures and coordination remain central as autonomy expands. Vigil backlash in Australia reflects broader security and social tension. The political fallout after the Vigil incident continues, with leaders urging unity while critics cite rising fear and anger. The episode is becoming a flashpoint in Australia's debate over public safety and community relations. North Carolina crash investigation continues after deaths of 7 investigators are examining weather, aircraft performance, and communications after the fatal Statesville airport crash that killed Greg Biffle and others. The NTSB says it will release preliminary findings after initial evidence review and lab work. Department of Justice and Congress clash over Epstein file compliance and redactions. New reporting says lawmakers are pursuing procedural tools to compel additional disclosures, while Department of Justice officials argue they are meeting statutory obligations. The fight is now moving into a more formal oversight phase, with public statements escalating. Milwaukee judge conviction adds pressure to immigration enforcement debate. The conviction of Judge Hannah Dugan is fueling renewed arguments over the boundaries between local judicial discretion and federal enforcement actions. Legal observers say appeals and disciplinary consequences are likely to follow. Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas, and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Boards. Department of Homeland Security says Coast Guard seized motor tanker Centuries in a lightning boarding operation. The Department of Homeland Security says the U.S. Coast Guard, working with federal partners, seized the motor tanker Centuries in what DHS described as a rapid lightning strike boarding operation. Officials say the vessel was suspected of involvement in sanctions-related oil transport tied to Venezuela. The seizure is part of a broader maritime enforcement effort targeting illicit oil shipments and sanctions evasion. Point. Hegseth says Venezuela tanker blockade remains in full force. Secretary of War Pete. Hegseth says the U.S. blockade of sanctioned oil tankers departing from or bound for Venezuela remains fully in effect. He tied the continued enforcement to pressure on the Maduro regime and the recovery of what he described as stolen American assets. The statement signals ongoing interdictions and sustained maritime pressure in the region. U.S. Marines conduct live-fire deck shoot aboard USS Iwo Jima. U.S. Marines with a Maritime Special Purpose Force from the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit conducted a live-fire deck shoot aboard the amphibious assault ship USS Iwo Jima while operating in the Caribbean Sea. Military officials say the exercise was part of routine readiness and maritime security training to maintain combat proficiency. Rubio outlines shift away from NGO-centered foreign aid model. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said U.S. foreign aid should be tightly aligned with national interests and foreign policy goals. He signaled a move away from what he described as an entrenched NGO-driven system, emphasizing accountability and outcomes in future aid programs. NTSB issues second update on Greg Biffle plane crash investigation. The National Transportation Safety Board released a second update on its investigation into the plane crash that killed former NASCAR driver Greg Biffle and 6 others. Investigators say the aircraft attempted to return shortly after takeoff and that the investigation remains ongoing. Officials caution that no probable cause has been determined yet. Point. Department of Justice. Epstein file release sparks backlash after files removed. The Justice Department's latest release of Epstein-related files drew criticism after multiple files were removed from public access within a short time frame. The removals fueled renewed demands for transparency as critics questioned why materials were taken down and whether additional documents remain undisclosed. Department of Justice says reviews and redactions are intended to protect victims. Palantir CEO buys 3,700-acre former monastery property in Colorado. Palantir CEO Alex Karp has purchased a 3,700-acre former monastery property in Colorado for a reported $120 million. The land deal is among the largest residential purchases in state history and includes significant acreage and historic structures. The purchase is drawing attention for its size, price, and long-term land use restrictions. Point. Trump endorses Bruce Blakeman for New York Governor. President Trump endorsed Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman as a candidate for governor of New York following Elise Stefanik's exit from the race. The endorsement is expected to influence the Republican primary field as the 2026 election cycle begins to take shape. Trump endorses Chris Gobert in Texas congressional race. President Trump endorsed Chris Gobert in the race for Texas's 10th congressional district, calling him a strong supporter of an America First agenda. The endorsement elevates Gobert's profile as primary campaigning accelerates ahead of the next election cycle. TPUSA. AmericaFest continues with major speakers in Arizona. Turning Point USA's AmericaFest continued with a full slate of speakers and panels, including appearances by Steve Bannon, Brandon Tatum, and several members of Congress. Organizers described the event as a major gathering for conservative activists, media figures, and organizers ahead of upcoming political battles. Puerto Rico labor official and others indicted in unemployment fraud case. Federal prosecutors announced indictments against a Puerto Rico Department of Labor employee and 7 others accused of participating in an unemployment insurance fraud and kickback scheme. Authorities say the case involves public corruption and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent claims. Rutgers faces backlash over seminars by Antifa handbook author. Rutgers University is facing criticism after scheduling seminars led by the author of the book Antifa Handbook. Critics argue the seminars promote political extremism, while university officials defend the programming as part of academic discourse. The dispute has sparked petitions and calls for administrative review. Blue Origin completes New Shepard mission with accessibility milestone. Blue Origin successfully completed another New Shepard suborbital mission, marking a milestone in accessibility as a wheelchair user reached space for the first time. The brief flight crossed the recognized boundary of space before returning safely, adding to the company's growing list of commercial space missions. Point. NASA says Parker Solar Probe observed interstellar comet. NASA reports that the Parker Solar Probe observed an interstellar comet passing through the solar system, capturing rare data during its mission near the Sun. Scientists say the observations could help improve understanding of objects that originate outside our solar system. Astronomers report possible first superkilonova event. Astronomers say they may have detected the first known superkilonova, a theorized cosmic explosion combining features of a supernova and a kilonova. Researchers stress the finding is preliminary and still being evaluated against other possible explanations. USS Abraham Lincoln conducts routine flight operations. The U.S. Navy released imagery showing the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln conducting routine flight operations, including jet launches and recoveries. Navy officials say the operations demonstrate readiness and the carrier's ability to operate globally when called upon. Guantanamo Bay reports Pack-Out Day ahead of court activity. Observers at Guantanamo Bay report a pack-out day as facilities prepare for upcoming military commission proceedings. The update reflects routine logistical movement as judges and legal teams rotate in and out ahead of scheduled hearings. Tina Peters' case returns to spotlight amid political debate. The imprisonment of former Colorado election official Tina Peters has returned to national attention as supporters argue her case reflects broader concerns about election oversight and government power. Peters was convicted on charges related to unauthorized access to voting equipment and is serving a prison sentence. Online claim of suspended UK tech deal remains unverified. Claims circulating online that President Trump suspended a $40 billion US-UK technology deal over free speech concerns remain unverified. No official confirmation has been issued by US or UK authorities, and the claim has not been supported by primary government releases. Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen, including me. God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. See you soon.
Night Shift.